father was a rabbi. I was raised in a religious family. I grew up with two parents who both had callings. And so I got the idea that you're supposed to have a calling. And they both involved teaching, and they both involved preaching in a certain sense. In fact, my father's formal diploma from the seminary said preacher and teacher. And so growing up in that, in that that's kind of what you were supposed to do and be. My father struggled a lot with his formal leadership roles as a congregational rabbi. It's very tough stuff. And if you're not a people person or you find politics challenging, it's tough. And I think that may have had something to do with my interest in leadership, actually. Because like I said, his diploma said preacher and teacher. It didn't say leader. And congregations require leadership. And that may have something to do with my early interest in it. I mean, I wouldn't have certainly described it that way then. When I went off to college, when I came here to college in 1960, then, Senator Kennedy, or President Kennedy, was elected that year. And that was a very, inspirational kind of moment. His youth and his call to a new generation of leadership. But I think, again, the people that I found myself really drawn to, because I went to school here for 2 years and took a year and lived in Berkeley, and then came back here, and that would have been 62, 63, and I found a lot of my roommates were involved with the civil rights movement, and as I met the organizers involved in that, I had tremendous admiration for them, and because they were peers or just a little bit older, but they were like living the values that I embraced but wasn't living, and that was very challenging and very inspiring in the sense of like, I want to be like those guys, those guys and gals both. But then once I left here and went to work in the South in '64 with the Summer Project and then in the Civil Rights Movement, then I met a whole variety of people who were sources of inspiration. Only they weren't typically, people occupying positions of great formal authority. It was people like Mr. E.W. Steptoe in Amite County, Mississippi, a NAACP leader who was a small farmer who had somehow survived death threats for like 30 years. And I got to live at his house for 8 months and ride with him, as they say, and learned a whole lot about life. Or people like Hollis Watkins, who was a young man from Lincoln County, Mississippi, who was involved in the Civil Rights Movement. And so it was that kind of an introduction to at least. So that's kind of what I came to understand leadership to be about. And not so much, as I say, occupying the heights of command, but rather finding the sources of inspiration and strategy to survive, to prevail under very challenging circumstances, and enable others to find those sources for themselves.